Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Today I wanted to talk about Chief Wendell Franklin from Tulsa, Oklahoma, or in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This idiot has come out and asked for more gun control in the guise of what happened after 9/11. He's comparing the current situation of violence in the country to 9/11, and that the security changes that he's asking for, gun control basically, were kind of the same type of event, or we're facing the same type of event like what happened after 9/11. Now, he's advocating for a waiting period, an end to constitutional carry, stricter controls on ghost guns, quote-unquote ghost guns, and straw purchases. He's asking for what has happened in Illinois, Chicago, Illinois, New York, and California, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a red state. They shouldn't have this type of rhetoric going, especially from someone like a police chief, because that emotional response he's trying to get from evoking the image of 9/11 and how we all conform to changes in security, like at the airports and stuff, and the security nationwide because of 9/11, to the current atmosphere where his people aren't doing his job. He's advocating for more control over the people, just like they did after 9/11, because he says he's the expert, because he's a law enforcement agent. And while there is some truth to being a law enforcement agent that's an expert in the subject matter, if you cannot get the job done, and crime is going through the roof in your area, or you can't control it, and your people can't control it, you need to look first at what recently changed in your area. That's number one. Number two, why? Is it the firearm, or is it actually a fact that you just don't know what the hell you're doing, or you don't have enough funding? Now, they're going to go for funding always because, it's money, and that's what government entities are going to try to go after first. But I think that this is very telling because, like I said, Tulsa isn't like New York. Tulsa is a very red, conservative area. Well, a state is. Oklahoma is. After all, they just banned abortion. So how is it that something, or a state just like this, has these guys in cities of power, in positions of power, and no one's complaining? It's because they've been beaten back. They're not paying attention to what's going on. Colion Noir is the one that brought this to my attention, and it's just because I watched his video. At the same time that we're seeing the abuses of power with the ATF, we're seeing a mirror with police chiefs. My own police chief in San Juan County, or not San Juan County, that would be my sheriff. He doesn't seem to be very pro-gun control. That's why I kind of like my sheriff in San Juan County. But the police chief in Farmington, Chief Hebe, the one that was responsible ultimately for them killing an innocent homeowner, has been advocating for gun control. He had Yvette Harrell up here, and she was, or no, it's the long Spanish one, Teresa something, anyway. Letcher, anyway. What her state thing was is right after the shooting we just had, where a kid kind of went nuts, shot some people here. We had a mass shooting in Farmington. And she instantly called for the banning of assault weapons and blamed it on the gun. Now, she was brought up here by Police Chief Hebe. So she came up here and met with him on purpose. Now, I understand why the law enforcement feels a little overgunned or outgunned. In reality, they are overgunned. They're wearing full body armor, where most people that are civilians don't have that. But I understand why. They're facing the threat all the time. Now, that sounds contradictory, but it's the truth that police have had to escalate their way of how they do their job. But if you look at what these guys are doing, why they're holding on to power, how they get power, and then what they do with that power, that is very telling. And specifically, when you have a police chief that is looking to disarm the populace, curtail constitutional carry, and they're blaming the gun, the tool, for the problems that they're facing, without looking at Oklahoma is very close to Texas, New Mexico. We have a border crisis. The crime escalation you're seeing is part of that. The other thing you've seen is in states like New Mexico and Colorado, they've had bail reform. And while that sounds great until you realize what they're doing, cashless bail is a bad thing. If you have continued repeat offenders being turned out back onto the streets, you're going to see a spike in crime. After all, most of those repeat offenders are the ones that perpetrate most of the crimes in the area. Especially property crimes. He mentions, and I say he, Chief Wendell Franklin, mentions that guns are being stolen out of cars because of constitutional carry. No, guns are being stolen out of cars for two reasons. Number one, the gun owner is a damn idiot for not having it on his hip or her hip. That's number one. Number two, the fact that you cannot enforce the laws you have on the books already, so therefore you're trying to get more so that you can try to curtail the problem you guys have allowed to happen. You guys had the opportunity, and I say you guys, you law enforcement agents, had the opportunity to speak to the people in power that you serve, in addition to the community, and come up with a solution that was, more doable. You trying to ban firearms tells me that law enforcement is weaker than they actually are. You're saying that you cannot do your job effectively because you need more power. You need to subdue the populace. That's what that says to me. This isn't a problem of a gun. This is a problem of you not being able to fix the problems in your area. You not being able to enforce the laws that are already on the books. Adding more laws isn't going to help you if you can't enforce them anyway. There are hundreds of thousands of gun laws on the books. Not one of them seems to be curtailing violence. Not one of them seems to be curtailing gun crime. Not one of them seems to be curtailing crime at all. If a law worked like it's supposed to as a deterrent towards crime, people wouldn't perpetrate crimes. The fact of the matter is, we have a bigger problem that I've mentioned infinite number of times here, and it's a mental health problem. These people, you're assuming, number one, that a criminal who already doesn't care about the law is going to obey the law when it comes to guns. Guns, for criminals, constitutional carry isn't even a worry for them. They're just going to use the gun as the tool that it's designed for, to perpetrate a crime, to enforce their will on someone else, just like you are trying to enforce your will on us. So before you start thinking about, we need another gun law, or we need 9/11 style gun reform, security on guns, let's think really hard about your situation and where you're at. What has caused the crime spike in those large cities? Could it be rampant homelessness? Could it be rampant joblessness? Could it be the economy crashing so people are starting to get desperate and do stupid things? Or is it that you've taken those repeat offenders and thrown them back out on the street and they've become increasingly dangerous? That's what I lean towards. So rather than disarm me and the rest of the populace who are just trying to defend ourselves because we know what our response times are, and we know we have to be our own first responder, why are you doing this? It's simple. There's no other answer other than you need power over the people. And why should we cede more power to you when we've already seen that you're not willing to do the job you were hired for? This type of person doesn't need to be coddled, doesn't need to be held up as a hero. They need to be held up as a villain. They need to be put away. They need to be removed from power. You know, if you keep seeing the same types of situations happening time and time again, especially with law enforcement not doing their job or not able to do their job because of what's going on with the political situation in your state or your county or your city, the people that are complaining need to look at why that is, instead of just going to law enforcement and say, hey, you need to fix this. Because law enforcement can't fix everything. You know, that is one thing I will have to give them props for, that they can't fix everything. They can't fix bad parenting. They can't fix the economy. They can't fix the desperation that happens to the people that they serve when those situations hit them. So the best thing possible is to enforce the laws you have. If those laws aren't effective, look out why. It isn't, again, when you start saying you need such draconian measures as 9/11 style gun reform or security reform for guns, you're saying, quite literally, you cannot do your job. That you are not effective enough to do your job in any fashion, in any form. And to me, that means you need to go away. There is absolutely no reason for you to be on payroll for the city of Tulsa if you, as the leader of law enforcement for the city of Tulsa, cannot see a way out of the situation you're in without imposing worse, more draconian, more harsh laws on the average citizen who didn't perpetrate a crime, who never would perpetrate a crime. There's a large population of people like myself that never try to break a law. We break a law if we speed. We try not to do that. It's usually because we're passing. And I'm not making excuses for myself. I'm saying the average citizen is a good person, or who is a good person, isn't going to be in the system. They've already been curtailed by their own morals, their own higher code, whether it's religious or their own code of ethics as it is. So why would we cede more power to law enforcement when they can't do what they were hired to do? Instead, just like always, we look to the side of them and go, well, back the blue. Well, if the blue can't back themselves and can't enforce the law that they already have access to, and they can't solve the problem because they see it as a power problem, that they need more power, they absolutely don't need their job. That's the ultimate bottom line here. And instead of us, keep going to the government hoping that they're going to find a solution to this problem, we need to start tossing tables and saying, no, you need to go. And the sooner both sides of the aisle realize that, the sooner we'll find a solution to this problem. You cannot have someone who continually does nothing. And you see this in the House and the Senate in all cities, or all states. You see it in the House and the Senate at the federal level, where these do-nothing politicians, they speak and throw a great game until it's game time. And then you find out that these guys just are going to ride the pine. They're going to sit on the bench. And all they did was give platitudes to us yet again. Instead of being actionable and doing something actionable, they're going to say, hey, we need more power to take away from the people, more freedoms we want to rob of them, basically, because we can't control them as they are. Like, share, subscribe, be great.
In the top, I can't let it slide. My politics are rather controversial. Who would have thought?